In the complex world of international trade, a tariff is a tax that one country places on goods imported from another. Think of it as an extra fee designed to make foreign products more expensive. The primary goal is often to protect a country's own domestic industries from foreign competition, encouraging consumers to buy locally made goods instead. Tariffs can also be used as a political tool, a way for one nation to apply economic pressure on another to influence its policies or actions. This financial leverage can become a central point of contention in global relations, turning what seems like a simple economic decision into a significant geopolitical event with far-reaching consequences for businesses and consumers alike across the globe. This is precisely the situation that unfolded in August 2025. The United States, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, took a decisive and aggressive step against India. The action came in two distinct stages. First, on August 7, 2025, the U.S. government imposed a broad 25% tariff on goods from India and about 70 other nations. But just 20 days later, on August 27, the administration singled out India, levying an additional 25% tariff. This brought the total import tax on Indian goods to a staggering 50%, a move that immediately sent shockwaves through the international economic community and signaled a serious escalation in trade tensions between the two powerful democracies. The stated reason behind this sharp increase in tariffs was India's continued and growing relationship with Russia, specifically its significant purchases of Russian crude oil. The White House framed the tariffs as a necessary measure to counter threats from the Russian Federation by cutting off a major source of its revenue. From the U.S. perspective, India's actions were undermining international efforts to isolate Russia economically. This stance places India in a difficult position, caught between its long-standing strategic energy needs and the geopolitical objectives of its key Western partners. The decision highlights the intricate dance of global politics, where a country's energy policy can directly trigger a major trade dispute with an important ally. For India, a nation that imports nearly 90% of its oil, the decision to buy from Russia is a matter of pure economic pragmatism. Following the reduction of oil purchases by European nations, India became one of Russia's largest customers, securing crude at a significant discount. This arrangement has been incredibly beneficial, saving the Indian economy an estimated $12.6 billion over the last few years. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has been clear and firm on India's position, stating that the country will continue to purchase oil from wherever it is most advantageous. This unwavering stance underscores India's commitment to prioritizing its own energy security and economic stability, even if it means defying pressure from the United States. The imposition of a 50% tariff by the United States poses a grave and immediate threat to the Indian economy. The U.S. is not just any trading partner, it is India's largest export market, making this move particularly painful. The tariffs directly affect an estimated $48.2 billion worth of Indian goods that are shipped to American shores each year. This sudden and massive increase in cost could make Indian products uncompetitive in the U.S. market overnight. Exporters who have spent years, and in some cases decades, building relationships and supply chains with American buyers now face the daunting prospect of losing that business entirely, creating a ripple effect that extends deep into India's industrial heartland. Economic experts have been quick to sound the alarm, painting a concerning picture of the potential fallout. Projections suggest that if these high tariffs remain in place, India's exports to the United States could fall by as much as $35 billion within the current financial year alone. Such a dramatic decline in export revenue would inevitably impact the nation's overall economic growth, with some analysts warning that it could shave off up to 0.8% from India's gross domestic product. This is a significant setback for a country focused on rapid economic expansion, forcing the government and businesses to brace for a period of intense economic turbulence and uncertainty. Beyond the macroeconomic numbers, the tariffs represent a very real threat to the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of Indian workers. Key, labor-intensive sectors such as textiles, gems and jewelry and leather goods are among the most vulnerable. These industries employ millions of people, many of whom are skilled artisans and factory workers whose jobs are directly tied to export orders from the United States. A sharp drop in demand could lead to widespread layoffs, factory closures, and significant social and economic distress in industrial hubs across the country. The human cost of this trade dispute is a critical concern for Indian policymakers as they navigate this challenging period. Furthermore, there is a palpable fear among Indian business leaders that the trade conflict could escalate even further. So far, the tariffs have been limited to goods, but there is concern that the United States could expand these measures to include India's booming services and outsourcing sector, which accounts for a substantial 6% of the country's GDP. Another area of anxiety is the potential for changes to the H-1B visa program, a vital pathway for Indian tech professionals to work in the US. Any restrictions in these areas would dramatically raise the stakes, potentially crippling two of the most successful pillars of the modern Indian economy and deepening the crisis. In a swift and decisive response to the looming economic storm, the Indian government has turned its focus inward, aiming to strengthen its domestic economy. On September 4, 2025, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced a major overhaul of the country's goods and services tax system. The primary goal of this reform is to stimulate domestic consumption and create a buffer to soften the blow from the US tariffs. By making goods cheaper for its own citizens, the government hopes to encourage spending and keep the economic engine running, even as export revenues come under pressure. This move is a clear signal that India is preparing for a prolonged trade standoff. The new GST structure, which is set to take effect on September 22, 2025, simplifies the previous multi-tiered system into just two main rates, 5% and 18%. This change is designed to reduce the tax burden on a wide range of everyday items and consumer goods, including air conditioners and small cars, making them more affordable for the average Indian household. While essential items like life and health insurance will become exempt from GST altogether, a special higher rate of 40% will be applied to luxury and sin goods, such as high-end cars and tobacco products. This comprehensive reform is a strategic attempt to boost internal demand and provide much-needed relief to consumers and businesses. Simultaneously, India is actively pursuing a strategy of diplomatic diversification to reduce its economic dependence on the United States. The government is working to expedite new free trade agreements and strengthen existing partnerships with other major economies around the world. A significant milestone was achieved in July 2024 with the signing of a comprehensive trade pact with the United Kingdom. Furthermore, negotiations for a similar free trade deal with the European Union are reportedly in their advanced stages. These efforts are part of a broader push to open up new markets for Indian goods and create a more resilient and diversified export portfolio for the future. This diplomatic offensive extends beyond Europe. India is also focusing on deepening its economic and strategic ties with a host of other nations, including China, Russia, Japan, Mexico, and Canada. By cultivating these relationships, India hopes to build a wider network of trade partners who can help offset the potential losses from the US market. This multi-pronged approach, combining domestic economic stimulus with a proactive foreign policy, demonstrates India's resolve to navigate the current crisis on its own terms. It is a clear message that while India values its relationship with the US, it will not be cornered and will actively seek out new alliances to protect its national interests. As the trade dispute settles into a tense standoff, the international community is watching closely. India has, so far, chosen a path of restraint, deliberately avoiding the imposition of retaliatory tariffs on American goods, a different approach from a similar situation back in 2019. Many experts in India believe this is the wisest course of action, arguing that escalating a trade war with the world's largest economy would be counterproductive, given India's higher dependence on the US market. Meanwhile, other global powers have voiced their opinions, with both Russia and China publicly criticizing the US tariffs as a form of illegal trade pressure and expressing solidarity with India's position. Despite the firm stance from the White House, there are some within India who believe the harsh measures may not last. India's chief economic advisor, V. Anantha Nageswaran, has publicly stated his belief that the 50% tariff will likely be short-lived. He suggests there is a growing realization within the United States that these protectionist measures could be counterproductive to American interests as well, potentially disrupting supply chains and raising costs for U.S. consumers. While admitting he lacks concrete evidence, he anticipates a recalibration of the U.S. approach, offering a glimmer of hope for a diplomatic resolution before significant long-term damage is done to the bilateral relationship. However, the path forward remains fraught with uncertainty. If the tariffs persist well into the next financial year, they will pose what Nageswaran calls a huge challenge to India's economy, particularly for employment and GDP growth. The longer the dispute continues, the more it risks pushing India further away from its strategic alignment with the United States. This is a significant geopolitical risk, as India is a key member of the Quad Alliance, a partnership aimed at balancing China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. The tariffs could inadvertently strengthen the very partnerships the U.S. seeks to counter, pushing India closer to nations like Russia and China. Ultimately, the future of the U.S.-India trade relationship hinges on whether a compromise can be found. The ongoing tension serves as a stark reminder of how interconnected global economics and politics have become. India's long-term strategy of diversifying its markets and strengthening its domestic economy appears to be a prudent course of action, regardless of the outcome. For now, both nations stand at a critical crossroads. They can either find a way to de-escalate and repair their vital partnership, or risk a prolonged period of economic conflict that could reshape strategic alliances and have lasting consequences for the global order.